All right, Barton, level 7, lesson 11. This is the last, last lesson in level 7. So the last of the vowel R lessons. So let's get into it. So your student learned today that usually when an AR is followed by a consonant, it just says its regular sound. Okay, so like this is garlic. It says R right there. Okay, it's accented, it says R. But sometimes it's not accented, and we learned this last time that when it's not accented, Carol, it's when it is accented and it's followed by a vowel, it will also say air. Okay, so this word is Carol. So accented followed by a vowel, AR will say air. Well, there's another time it will say air, and that's when it's followed by the letter R, like the word carrot, okay? So this AR, again, is making that air sound, okay? So an AR followed by a vowel, and now an AR followed by an R will also say air. So we see it in a word like marrow, narrative, Mary, and then I actually have the students look up the word Mary, and they see that there's two different Marys because now we discover that an ER followed by a vowel also says air. Okay, so an ER followed by an R also says air. ER followed by a vowel, ER followed by an R, they all say air. Okay, so we see it in a word like terrible. Change terrible to terribly. We're going to drop our E and add our Y. We have the word terrify. Again, it's saying air right there. Now, we did go in to do a little bit of review for suffix endings. So the word terrifying, would you need to drop, double, change, or do nothing? This is actually one where we're going to do nothing right here. We cannot change our Y to an I because we cannot have two I's next to each other. So in the word terrifying, we keep our Y. We have the word cherry. We want to make it plural. We are going to have to change our Y to an I before we add our ES. The only time that we don't change our Y is if we're dealing with a suffix that's the letter I, okay? That starts like ing, ick, itty, something like that, okay? Then we talked about carry, and that sometimes even our red tiles over here, I gotta make this smaller maybe, yeah. A red tile over here, which says idge, also sometimes acts like a suffix, so we go carry, to care idge, like that. We have the same thing with Mary to marriage. Change your Y to an I, add that AGE tile in. So there's a lot of different ways for your student to spell air right now. So if you're not sure which one to use, we always say, if your student is using the regular spell checker from here, this one, then the way that they're going to look it up is the most common spelling, which is AIR. The most common way to spell air is AIR. So, like, let's say they were trying to spell the word narrow, and they were like, I don't know, I can't figure it out. I would tell them to look it up, AIRO or even OW. And this spell checker would find it. Do I think students are going to do that in the real world? Why? No, I do not think they're going to do that in the real world. This is sort of like doing long division and working through and thinking through their choices. I think they're going to ask Alexa. I think they're going to ask Siri, and I think that's just fine. Okay. I would rather them know that it's not spelled correctly and get the correction than not. Okay, that's how we map words in our brain, by seeing them the right way and everything else. Okay, but I still want your students to be thinking of the different parts of the word. And so if they hear air inside narrow, that's a win. We want that. We don't want them just to memorize the spelling of narrow. That is good memorizing. That is not being a good speller. That's a good memorizer. So the next thing that we learned is prefix IR. And it will be over here housed in our prefix tiles. And so what we learned is that this is the third. These are going to be called chameleon prefixes eventually. This is the third chameleon prefix that we have learned in here. And so we learned that the only time we use prefix IR, which says ear, by the way. So it says ear and it means not, okay? Just like IN means not, and just like IM means not. The only time we use IM is if your base word starts with M, P, or B. So you can hear that in a word like immobile, impractical, imbecile. That's the only time we use IM. We use IR only when the base word starts with the letter R, and we use IM the rest of the time. Okay, so like we have a word like rational, we want it to mean not rational, it's going to be IR, irrational. And again, just a little bit of review with prefixes, there are no rules for them, you get to smuck them right on. Changes the meaning of the word a lot, the spelling part of it generally is pretty easy. Okay, we have a word like response. Now we're going to change it to responsible. And then we want it to mean not responsible, irresponsible. Final word that I'm going to show you is going to be refute. We want it to be refutable. And then irrefutable. Okay, so still working on suffix ending rules, but adding that prefix isn't super challenging. IR means not, only goes with base words that start with R. All right, switching gears. We are going to start with extra practice number 3. Accented AR plus R and ER plus R both say air. In each word, circle the correctly spelled real word. Use your spell checker again if you're not sure. And so I've done that for you. Terrace, arrow, blueberries, cherry, arrow, sparrow, narration. Draw lines between words that rhyme. We've got Harris and Ferris, Marrier and Carrier, Baron and Darren, Furry or Worrier, Barrel, Daryl, Herring, and Airing, Error, and Terror. And again, sometimes these are tricky for students because the spellings are different, even though they sound the same. Okay, the last one we did add prefix IN, IM, or IR to make the real word, then write the whole line on the blank line. So I didn't do that for all of these, but you can see like this would be irresponsible, impossible, irrational, no. Insincere, immobile, incorrect, irregular, incomplete, irreversible, irrelevant, impolite, irresistible. And then fluency drills. For this one, these are mostly regular words. There's a couple of them that have some prefixes on there. So if you want, your student can always go through and find the prefixes on some of these words. Kind of highlight those if you want, so that they're really looking at the base word. If they have a prefix, is that all of them? I think so. If they have a prefix, usually they're going to have a suffix, not always, but. And okay, so, oh, irritate, missed one. So they can go through and read these again, decoding, not guessing, understand the vocabulary in them. These are getting pretty long, can do the same thing if your student is really intimidated by these, or if they start making a lot of mistakes. I then want these words to be smaller and them to focus on the base word or the root. Sometimes these are Latin roots in here, like the word rational, like the base word isn't rat, right? But that is Latin in the middle there. Irritated, again, that's not a base word. The base word isn't writ, but that is Latin in there. So I would start to have them make the word smaller by finding the bits and pieces that they know in the word, and then really focusing on the decoding for that one. So that's it. Book 7 done, donezo. Your student will be doing some. They will have to do the post review work, which just helps us know what parts of the book we need to go back and maybe look at for a hot second again and do a little bit of review so that we know that that's committed to some good memory. You know, remember when your student is doing this and you see their papers come back from school and some of these rules aren't on there? You know, when they're working with us, it's in a tightly controlled environment. We're dictating words that have a specific pattern. It does take a little bit of time for this to transfer into school. In school, they're working in an environment where they don't have unlimited time. They need to work quickly. So you will see that breakdown occur between tutoring and school. But just trust the process. It does transfer over. It just takes a while, quite a while actually. Okay, another PSA about level 8 that's coming up next. Your student's gonna have to pack some patient pants for that in the beginning, because level 8 starts a little bit different than most of our levels. It starts out really difficult and then it gets a little bit easier. Starts out working on really tricky endings to words. So the first 4 lessons, 8.1, 2, 3, and 4, are all pretty tricky. And yeah, they're going to need to be patient with it. And then it gets a little bit easier after that. So starting in about 8.5, we just start working on some advanced vowel teams and we go from there. So just a quick PSA about level 8, but I mean, gosh, level 8 is just, it's a very technical level, but boy, another level where you're just going to see your students' confidence soar when they get through that, because many of those endings are endings that they've been avoiding for a very long time. And now they get to read them. All right, that's it. Have a wonderful day.